Welcome, everyone, to the Choose to Think podcast. I'm Victoria, and I'm so glad that you're here. And you can see on the other side of the screen a dear friend of mine. His name is Max Rooke. And Max, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. You're such a blessing. So I appreciate any time spent with you.
Yeah, we're going to have fun today. I just
Yeah.
already know it. I can feel just in our pre-recording chat. We could have gone on forever, and I'm like, let's stop. Let's get this recorded because it's so good just to chat with you. But I want everyone to become familiar with who Max is. So I'm going to read his astounding bio. Did you hear his accent? Which I love. I had half a mind, Max, to try to do a British accent.
That's good.
But,
I like that.
yeah.
I like that.
There's one part in here I'm going to read with a British accent because I've heard you read this on YouTube or say it somewhere. I'm not one of your challenges or something. But this is who Max is. He says this: I have the privilege of coaching and working with high achieving individuals and teams who have a real deep desire to perform and live life at the next level. Max's passion comes from living his life inside a world of high performance and studying why people do what they do. This journey has led him to extensively research the answer to this question: what is the difference between good and great in every area of life? The answer is what his clients use to make the small shifts that create extraordinary results. Now, Max calls himself a high achiever himself, and he had to personally overcome the overwhelming feelings of fear, stress, and anxiety that came with pursuing success and trying to close the gap between where he was and where he ultimately wanted to be. What he found out was this: your value does not come from what you do. It comes from who you are. There's my accent. Who you are. That's it. I've heard you say that.
Love it.
Yeah, he says, with a deep understanding of the forces that shape the way we think, act, and feel, and this is so much in line with the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast, thinking, acting, and feeling. He now gets to help coach extraordinary people to see what's possible, even if they can't see it for themselves, so that they can achieve extraordinary things. So that's a part of life to the max. I call it a ministry, but your side coaching business, I think we could call it.
Yep.
But let me tell you now a little bit about him personally. He's a native of England, and he grew up and played for professional team Reading Football Club. Reading Football Club? What's that?
It's Reading. Actually, it looks like it's spelt reading, but it's actually pronounced Reading. So yeah. So
okay, I'm like, Reading he's a great reader. He knows how to read. Okay, so Reading Football Club. Now, football, no, football, soccer, right?
Football, soccer, you got it. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Before moving to the U.S.A. to play collegiate soccer for NCAA Division I Mercer University. During this time, Max won 4 conference championships, was Atlantic Sun Conference Player of the Year, an All-American selection, and is currently the only male soccer player in school history to have his jersey retired. Okay, how cool is that? He also had the distinguished honor of being a member of the Great Britain national soccer team and competed at 2 world championships. As a coach, was an accomplished high school educator and coach before moving to the NCAA collegiate game. He worked as an assistant coach for the Mercer University women's soccer program and the University of Illinois Springfield men's soccer program. And I got a question about men and women here in a second. And coaching them. During his time in Springfield, Max also served as the director for coaching for Springfield Area Soccer Association. Currently, right now, he's working as the associate head women's soccer coach at Pepperdine's University in Malibu, California, where he's been part of 2 West Coast Conference championships, 1 NCAA Sweet 16 appearance, 4 NCAA tournament appearances, and 2 NCAA Regional Staff of the Year awards. And when not coaching or sharing his empowering message, Max enjoys spending time with his wife and supporting her volleyball team. You two are a perfect match, I think. So, oh my goodness, that's such a long list of amazing accomplishments, Max.
It's taking me back. It's taking me back. I'm going down memory lane. Thank you. I've done that for a while. So, so thank you for that gift.
Yeah, you've come a long way. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, you know, and how we met, just so the listeners will know, Max and I are both a part of the Life on Fire movement. And that's a group basically of Christian entrepreneurs or wannabes who are kind of like-minded. And it's a huge Facebook community under the coaching, the business coaching of Nick and Megan Unsworth. So that's how we actually met. It was a breakout room during a weekend summit, and we connected. Matter of fact, you may remember Max way back when, I believe it was our first season of the podcast. We're now in our third season, and he joined several other entrepreneurs and shared a quick message about overcoming toxic thinking and so forth. But I'm just so delighted to have you today. And let's just jump right into, you know, we want to, you say yourself that you've overcome those overwhelming feelings of fear, stress, and anxiety. And I'm quite certain that you see this in the students, the soccer players that you actually coach and have coached throughout your career. But what I was kind of curious, since you've coached both men and women, is the thinking different somehow, or what might hang up a man or a male? Is it different from the hang-ups or the struggles that maybe the female athletes would have?
It's a great question. Man, we could probably spend a whole hour just on that question. But no, I think, well, again, I want to say, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. And you are amazing. You are amazing.
Thank you.
And but no, I think when you talk about so I've had the blessed opportunity throughout this journey of coaching to work with, man, I was a PE teacher. I worked with, like, you know, K5, you know, I say little nippers, right? Little itty bitty, you know, little young ones, you know, and then being a director of a club and then working the way up. I coached high school for 10 years. Now being in the college game, working with men, working with women, we have the blessing that we have players that will go on and play professionally, and then they still reach out for coaching. So I get to coach professional athletes, and so that span is you know, it's taken me in a place where you have to figure out what makes everybody tick, right? And why do people do what they do? And so yeah, I think fundamentally there are some similarities between, you know, men and women, and there's a certain way to coach. But at the same time, man, there are some differences between men and women. And I think that I would start with this. Nothing is more true for coaching women than to say people don't know how much people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, you know. And for coaching women, I still think that applies to men, but there is a very different way of coaching women. I think that the beauty of what I get to do, because getting to work with some amazing young women at Pepperdine University, is they're some of the best athletes in the world. You know, they're some of the best athletes in the country. We attract the highest achievers, right? High level people that want to do not just soccer at high level, they want to do life at a really high level. But at the end of the day, what do they want most of all? They want to feel loved, they want to feel cared for, and they want to know that they matter. And if you put that first, then everything else takes care of itself. You know what I'm saying? So if you just lead with, hey, you got to do this and this and this, and, you know, the expectation is this, and it's all about soccer, or it's all about performing, or it's all about winning, you know, you're not going to get as much out of that group of people until you kind of shift it, you know. And that's what I just, again, I'll end it with this, is that's really what I've spent my entire life doing, is figuring out how do we break through those barriers? How do we break through to next levels of success and happiness and fulfillment? And for the longest time, Victor, I say this, for the longest time, I was always looking for the big things in my own personal journey, you know, like what are the big things that can make these big differences in my life, and to make these big impacts and these big changes to create these big results. And over time, the more and more I studied it, the more and more I failed, the more and more I learned from other people that were in places I wanted to get to, I found that it was all in the little things. And that's really what has guided me now in this last journey of my coaching career, is really trying to figure out what are the little things that can make the biggest difference, right? Like you said before, the smallest shifts in mindset and energy and feelings and emotions, is what are the smallest things that can create the biggest difference. And again, going back to women, it's like I had to learn that. I came out the gate, and it's like I was just like boom, boom, boom. And I quickly learned that just the smallest shifts can create the biggest difference. And yeah, like I say, leading with love, leading with care, making sure they understand that they are number one. Then it's amazing what they'll do when they step on the field. It's quite incredible. And we just had a season where we made history for our program at Pepperdine University, and yeah, it was such a fun season, such enjoyable. People look back and like, well, how'd you do it? And when I told them, they're like, no, you must be joking. I'm like, no, we just love on the girls. We don't really talk a lot about winning. We don't talk a lot about, results. We just show up and we just love each other, care for each other, live for a higher purpose, put God first, and it's just like amazing things happen. So anyways, I know that's a lot, but that's what's really has been a huge shift for me in the last 5 to 10 years of my coaching career.
It's so intriguing that you even mentioned don't talk about the results, because when I think about a coach, sometimes I'm thinking, okay, the coach only wants to win, and you've kind of turned that on its head in a way, and you've said, no, let's let the results take care of themselves, or let's release the outcome here. Let's, I guess, just do our best or whatever. That's sort of what I teach even in the Spanish classroom at the university. So many students come to me, they're like, I got to pass this class. I got to pass this class. I got to get this grade, or my parents are going to kill me or whatever. And I have to try to calm them down. And I say, okay, let's just forget that exam, forget the final, forget the course grade. What can we do today that will help you actually get there? Let's talk about the steps along the way, and then release the outcome. Suddenly you'll find yourself there, or at least you'll know you've done the very best possible. So could you give some examples, Max, of those little things or those small things? Like, could you put that within a framework for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So one of the we're all fans, right, of like, so information, but when you can turn information into stories, I think stories allow us a great opportunity to really understand the content, what it is we're trying to figure out a lot better. And so I always often use this story as a way to kind of show what I'm talking about when I say little things make a big difference. And so I don't play golf. Victoria, you with the pickleball, right? I let you love the pickleball.
Right.
But what about golf? A golf fan? No?
I've played golf occasionally, but no, not really.
Okay. So I'm not a huge golfer, right? I'm not a huge golfer, but I've played every now and again at some different charity events and stuff. Anyways, so I'll keep this quick because I could when I at events I tell this story over like the course of like 30 minutes. But I was out on the driving range one day, and when I was in that zone of trying to figure things out, right? I was trying to figure my life out. I'm trying to figure out how do I accelerate my life to get it where I wanted, and then also the people that I had the blessing to impact. And you was just trying to figure things out. So again, I was in that space of I was trying to create, like I say, big impact in my life. So anyways, so I'm out on the golf course one time, and I'm just on the drive range, and I'm hitting these balls, right? So I got up and I hit this ball, and I hit it straight. I mean, and I don't play golf a lot, right? And I hit this straight down the fairway, like, 200 yards, 250 yards. I'm man, I mean, like, I like golf, I can do this thing, I'm getting all pumped up, right? So if you've played, which again, I haven't done it a lot, but if you play golf enough, golf can be a cruel game, right? So I hit this ball like straight down the fairway, right? Well, the very next shot, I do the same pre-shot routine. I do everything the same. I rear back. I think I hit this ball the exact same way. And this ball, I'm not sure if everybody's watching some video, but it's like, it like curls off and it goes like 50 yards off to the right,
I think there's a name for that. There's like what is that called?
Shank,
yeah, it's a shank or something.
Yeah, and I shanked it like 50 yards off to the right. I'm like, oh my God. So, you know how it is. Then your mind starts going, well, what'd you do? You know what I'm saying? Now you get a little bit frustrated. You're like, man, you try and figure it out. You're like, what did I do wrong? You talk about that toxic thinking. You're like, man, is it me? Da-da. So anyway, so I always say this. I'm saying, well, when you make a mistake or something happens of adversity, generally, what do you try to do right after it? You try to make adjustments, right? So I was like, okay, so I'm going to make this little adjustment. So not a big adjustment, just going to make this little adjustment. So my third shot, okay, it's true story, Victor, third shot, right? So it's just, I just made a little adjustment, not a big adjustment, little tiny adjustment. Third shot, same pre-shot routine. I'm doing everything the same. I rear back, club goes back. I hit this ball. I think I hit exactly the same as the other two shots. This thing goes 50 yards off to the left in the complete opposite direction. Now I'm like, my head is like exploding, right? Now you talk about like frustration, overwhelm. Now I'm like, I'm mad. I want to throw the club. I'm like, I hit one straight down the fairway, one off to the right, one off to the left. What's going on? So in that moment, so this is it, in that moment of like just pure, like I say, just kind of going inward on myself and everything like that. This guy, he walks by me. I didn't know at the time, but he was the golf pro at the club, and he walks by me and he whispers to me, he says, and obviously I didn't know him. It's the first time I met him. He goes, "You're not too far away." And I'm like, what did he say? Like what? Like I don't even know this guy. I'm like, what did you say? You're not too far away. I'm like, so then my mind and my heart is just open, right? So I'm like, well, please explain. Victoria, what he told me changed the course of my life forever. Like if whoever's listening to this, if you take this one piece, then, you'd be like, this crazy English guy talks too much. Like, take this one piece, it will change your life forever. He said, when the shaft of the golf club and the golf ball, he said, when they meet, he said, if the shaft of the golf club is off by just 1 millimeter, the compounding effect of that 1 millimeter over the distance the ball travels creates the 50 yards that the ball went off to the right. And if I just change the head of the golf club by 1 or 2 millimeters in the other direction, just 1 or 2, the compounding effect of that 1 or 2 millimeters over the distance the ball travels creates the 50 yards that the shot went off to the left. So the difference between me hitting a shot way off to the right and way off to the left, the difference between those two shots is 1 millimeter. And so then my heart is like, how do I apply that to my life? And so then I'm like, is that the answer that God was supposed to give me? Is like, hey, you've been looking for all the big things. Start focusing on the little things. Start focusing on all the little things that you can do in your life, that if you do, will take you from where you are to where you want to be. This big gap that you see, right? Those two golf shots, that massive gap. The way to get there is through those 1 millimeter shifts. So that's what I do now. That's what I teach. And so, for example, I have a player the other day, and she came by my office, and she's like, I'm struggling and da-da-da. And what she was so focused on, she was focused on what she wanted. She was, I want this. Like I want to start. I want to play. I want playing time. I want to be recognized by my peers. I want to be the player of the year. I want to score lots of goals, And it was so self-consuming, that, like you said, it was literally like a wall that she was putting up. Like her desire to want it so badly was putting up this wall. And so we sat down, and within 5-10 minutes, I said, look, I'm you've told me everything you want. Let's shift it. Why don't you start telling me who you need to be? You made a list. She's on my whiteboard. She wrote a list of all of her goals. Bang, 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 bang. I said, look, okay, over here on the right side, write a list of who you need to be to get it. So we took her through a process, and she wrote down who she needed to be, right? What type of person, what type of teammate, how she needed to feel emotionally, and all these different things, And then I challenged her before she left the room. I said, stop worrying about what you want, cross that out, and just do me a favor. And for the next couple of months during our season, just focus on who you need to be. And I'll help keep you on track, but make a concerted effort to focus on who you need to be. Victoria, 2 months later, she's best player on a team. She's a player of the year. All those things that she wrote down on the left side, it happened because she just made that one small shift. She got out of her own way, and she applied herself in terms of who she needed to be and not what she wanted. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's an example of like those small shifts, right? And it's just like, we just assume that we're supposed to focus on those things. And I'm like, that's what society says. That's what, what sort of the environment, especially me, the high performance environment, you're supposed to focus on winning. You're supposed to focus on results. You're supposed to focus on, and I'm like, every time I've done that, it's hard, and it's like, it's tough, and it overwhelms you, and it's, and you get burnt out doing that. So I'm like, let's try it this way. And as soon as I'm like, that worked. And then I did it on somebody else. I'm going to try it on you. And it worked. And then it worked again. It worked again. I'm like, there's something to this, if we just like, so that is basically what I've spent, these last few years, is creating programs and ways in which to help people create these shifts that ultimately can unlock, untapped potential. So it's fun. Anyways, I'm talking too much. But
oh no, you're not. No, what a great example. That is like identities-based goal setting, where you can achieve those goals that you want ultimately, but it's through identity and your values, instead of just focusing on that end result. And I also tell a story on the pickleball court where I thought, as an athlete, quote, I'm going to call myself an athlete, but okay, but at least I'm active. We can go there for sure. But I thought that it was so important for me to see the result and see that I was playing in my first pickleball tournament ever with a delightful partner in women's doubles. And I've told this story also, but as I'm trucking down the road in my car, going from where I live to Lexington to play this big tournament, I've got like some of those songs like we will rock you. I'm blasting that. I'm picturing the gold medal, the trophy, and I'm like, we're gonna sweep this. And they're gonna say, who are those ladies? I mean, I was so into myself thinking we were gonna do this and that we could do this. I hit the court in the pre-practice, and I'm like, have you ever just felt it like off? Like some days you get on, and every shot, every soccer thing you do is just like, wow, I'm on today. Well, that morning I was just like, something felt off. And I started getting in my head even. And the tournament came about. I was such a poor loser. The Lord has taught me so much through that experience. Sports are a wonderful learning environment. Let's just say that. Sure. Oh my gosh. And character refinement. I so needed that, but we lost horribly. It was not my partner's fault. I was hitting the balls into the net. I was hitting them out. I'm very accurate server, and my serves were not even going in. I'm like, what's happening to me?
Yeah.
And then I got so much into my head, I was focusing on all the mistakes. So I went from winning and we will rock you to, oh my gosh, I was miserable. I'm ashamed to tell you that I actually cried. I broke down in tears. There's this thing in pickleball where all the players, if you're playing doubles and even singles, you come to the net after the game and you put your paddles up and everybody says good game. It's just this nice etiquette protocol.
Sure.
I couldn't even say good game. I just went up there and went, I could barely put it was what an embarrassment. I was so glad there weren't any spectators I knew there. But
but I understand that. And, that makes complete sense. And I think that a lot of times, if I'm having a conversation with people, the next question I get is people say, well, so you're telling me I shouldn't have goals? And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. It's not saying that you shouldn't have goals. Goals are great. Goals help bring about clarity and alignment in things we want to do. So setting goals, having a vision of what you want. But there comes a point where if you want it too much, at some point you got to let it go. You know what I'm saying? And that's the key. That's the key right there. And that's there is a process, right? And so to be able you have to start with the end in mind, right? You have to know where you're going. So I do understand that. So I'm not saying, I want to say that for all the listeners, it's not that I'm saying that you shouldn't have goals. You should have goals, but at some point to get from where you are to where you want to be, you have to understand the road to get there. And if all you're doing is just consumed by that, we can actually get in our own way. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I found. That's kind of that upper limit problem is people like, what I say this a lot too, what got us to where we are today is actually the very thing that's holding us back from where we want to be tomorrow. And what I mean by that is there have been times I'm sure like yourself or myself where you've wanted something so badly, you've willed it to happen, and you've worked really hard, and you've done all of the grind and all that stuff. And then we assume, and then we associate that grinding and working hard and, and sacrificing our happiness and our fulfillment to get what we want. Like that's just what we do. That's how it should be. And I'm like, and I've done that, and I've done that. And it's, and it's not, it can get you to a certain place. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes to unlock that next level, and again, when I say unlock that next level, like hear me, and I don't want to make this all about success. I'm talking about happiness. I'm talking about joy. I'm talking about fulfillment. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about love. I'm talking about all those things. To unlock that, sometimes what got you to where you are is the very same thing. If you try and do the same thing, it's what's going to hold you back from that next level, And so it's, how do we find, what is that next thing? And oftentimes it's the paradox of what got you to where you are. So that's why I say what you want, and then you just focus on who you need to be. That's the paradox, right? And so by focusing on paradoxical things, it unlocks yourself to then live into, those things that you want. And so yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother ball game, because the living in the world of high performance for the last 20 plus years is like helping people get what they want, has been a big part of what I do. But I see so many people that also, I mean, you can have everything you want, but I also know a lot of people that are unfulfilled too. You can be successful and unfulfilled. And so a big part of this, especially the last couple of years, is helping people manage that. How do what does it mean to have this wholeness, right? What does it mean to be complete? Because I know a lot of people that have achieved a lot of great things and they're miserable, and I'm like, is that success, right? Not really, right? And so yeah, finding that fulfillment and and love and joy in the journey and in the, that's all part of it. Anyways, I don't.
Well, and you hear stories of gold medal winners, Olympians, and
that's right.
Okay, we won I have all these Super Bowl rings or whatever, but then suddenly, like after the game is over, after the event is over, they just dip so low because it was all this, but there are other areas of their life where they're missing the mark, or something's just missing there. What they thought was what was glittering didn't turn out to really be the gold that would impact their hearts and their minds. And that's really tricky. And I know for the pickleball, at least, my teammates encouraged me to just have fun and to remember it's just a game. And so now, matter of fact, I haven't told this, but a different partner and we went we played in Indiana, and we did win the gold. And that was I guess that was the second tournament. And so already I was prepared mentally in such a different way for that tournament. And it wasn't all about winning. I really wanted to be, number one, a good sports person, a sportsman. I wanted to have sportsmanship and to not be rude or mean or just disgruntled. And number two, I had to watch my self-talk. And then number three, just have fun and release that outcome, like you said. But what you said a moment ago also, Max, reminds me of like excuses. I wonder what would be like can you think of a few excuses that people make, perhaps your coaching clients or even your athletes? What do they come up with that they say, this just isn't working for me because of this? What's keeping people or holding them back in their own minds? What are those excuses? Anything come to mind there?
Well, goodness me. It's a lot, right? A lot. I think when in working with different people, oftentimes, right, we know what we want. Okay, like deep down, we know what we want, and then it becomes, are we willing to do what is necessary to get there, right? Are we willing to do it? And so oftentimes, I mean, something that I've had to experience myself is this idea of the fear of failure, right? Which is not uncommon, right? We all have that. We all have this fear of failure. What if I try and it doesn't work out? you know. And so then all the excuses come. It's like, well, I don't have the time, you know, I don't have this, I don't have that. You know, for coaches, a lot, when I work with coaches and I say, you know, well, you know, tell me a little bit more about your program, you know, as in like your team. Oh, well, we don't have this resource and we don't have that resource. And we just, you know, if we had this, we'd be much better. I'm like, well, that's not always, like, resources never the problem, right? It's always a matter of resourcefulness, like how resourceful we are in doing what we need to do to get where we want to go. And so a lot of times resources become an excuse, you know, well, I don't have this, we don't have this, you know, if only I had that. And what we're really saying is it comes back to this idea of the fear of failure. You know, what if I try and it doesn't work out? You know, I think all roads lead back to one of those, to that, or the other thing, which I didn't realize at the beginning. And I know I've been a victim of this. I can look at times where, you know, looking back now and trying to understand why I made some of the choices I made. Sometimes there's the fear of success. You know, what if I try and it does work out and I can't handle it? You know, what if I actually say I want something, I get it, and then when I get it, I realize I can't handle it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's going to change your life, right? It's going to change your life. If you want to be a great coach, or you want to have a great business, and you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to make a lot, that's going to change your life. It's going to change your daily, you know. And if we're used to our comfort zones, it's like, well, what if I do, you know, get it and I can't handle it? So it's easier just to sabotage ourselves, you know. And so I look at it like this. Have you ever heard like the sort of the thermostat effect? Have you heard that? Yeah, right. Kind of the idea of
Tell me what you mean.
So the thermostat effect being that, like, you know, what if we look at our lives and let's just say whatever we believe that we deserve, right? What we believe that we deserve in our life, let's just say that number equates to the temperature in a room of 72, you know? Okay. So I feel that in my life, I deserve, and whether it be consciously or unconsciously, by the way, a lot of times it's unconscious, right? That we say we want things, but really deep down, we only believe that we deserve a certain level of life, a certain level of happiness, a certain level of success, a certain level of financial security or abundance, whatever it's going to be. So let's say that number 72. Well, if that temperature in the room goes from 72 to 71 to 70 to 69 to 68, what tends to happen, right? Well, the heater kicks in and the temperature goes back up until it gets to 72. And that's just like in our life. What happens is if things don't go our way, if we believe that we're meant to experience a certain level of, again, success and happiness, fulfillment, stuff like that, when our life does not reflect that, we do something about it. We step up our game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I equate it to like being on a team. And if you feel like you're supposed to beat that team and you go down a goal to them, guess what? You better believe, like, your performance levels, you try harder, you run faster, like somehow you find all the things in you to then get that goal to equalize. And then you go on, you get the goal and you win the game, and you look back and say, well, of course we should have beaten. But there was a moment where, like, you know, the heater kicks in, and like, we should not be losing to this team. And so you do something about it, right? And that's easy. Everybody kind of, I think, at base level understands that, but not everybody talks about the other way. So then let's just say we feel that we deserve a certain level of success, happens from that 72. And all of a sudden, that temperature goes 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. Well, what happens to the thermostat then? The cooler kicks in and it says, whoa, it's too hot. Let's bring the temperature back down to 72. Victoria, that's like life. Sometimes when we experience momentum in our life, and our life is going from 72 to 73, and we're getting all the things that we said we wanted, 74, 75, 76. What do? We self-sabotage ourselves. We do something to mess it up. And I know I've done that before. So I'm not preaching to the choir. I'm not saying this. We've all done it. You know what I'm saying? Right. If I saw faces, I would ask people to raise their hands. And I think we can say we've all been there, where we sabotage ourselves. I'm like, why did I do that? Well, ultimately, it's because in our hearts, in our unconscious mind, like, we only believe that we're meant. So part of that process is, and, you know, again, what I try to help people with is to raise that level for 72, right? Raise the standard in their life, so where they're willing to accept more in their life, so they don't self-sabotage themselves. Because, like I say, we do a lot of these things unconsciously. You know, we find ways to keep ourselves at the level that we believe we're meant to live life at. You know, and
is that kind of like the glass ceiling? Have you heard of
A little
that?
bit, yeah.
Yeah, where
Similar, yeah.
you keep saying, yeah, I'm going to reach, I'm going to reach, I'm going to reach, but then when you hit it, that that glass ceiling, it's like, oh, I better come back down. That's as far as I can go. But
Yeah,
really, you got
exactly.
to kind of break through that
Yeah.
glass ceiling to
Yeah,
keep going.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. Wow. Do you, I I think about thoughts, and we've kind of gone all over the place. And I wonder, like, on a daily basis for you personally, Max, what kind of thoughts do you engage? Just say every single day. Here we are on a Tuesday. What is your personal thought life like?
Yeah. I love it. Can I just ask too,
Yes.
this is like your theme, right? So the thought, right? Having
Yes.
the thought, like the thought life
Yes.
and stuff. I love that. I absolutely think that's such a great thing to explore. I think that's brilliant. I love
and
that. When I
and
saw
it
that.
it impacts every area also.
Mhm.
It's not just health, it's not just wealth, it's not in purpose, it's not just love and relationships. It and your faith, it impacts I always say that lasting transformation is only one thought away.
Mm.
Because if
Yeah.
you kind of like what you said about those little micro habits or those small minute millimeter changes, if you can begin to start small, even with just one thought, and change
Sure.
one thought, suddenly you begin living a completely different life. So,
Sure.
but I wonder, like, what really
Yeah.
kind of makes you tick, and what thoughts do you have to really resist even?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that, you know, nobody's perfect. So I'd love to say that, oh, I mean, I'm positive every second of the day and everything's great, and I live this belief that, hey, how do we get, take this journey from good to great? And, what does it mean to live in a level of greatness? And, I'd be lying if I said that, I can do that 100% of the time, because, life is going to hit you. Right. And
That's
so,
right.
but no, I think that I always say this: where focus goes, energy flows. Right? What you focus on, you're going to feel, and what you focus on, you're going to get more of. Okay,
Mm.
and that's not a me thing. That's a Tony Robbins thing. I mean, I went to one of his events, which changed my life, and he always
Oh
says
my
this: is
gosh.
where focus goes, energy flows, and that's kind of always stuck in my heart. And basically, it's this idea of, we all face the similar scenarios and situations in the day, but are we choosing to think things that help us or hurt us, things that make us better or worse, things that push us forward or backwards? Are we focused on the positive or the negative? Are we focused on
Mhm.
getting to do stuff, or do we have to do it? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's such a small word, right? Get to versus have to. Showing up to work, showing up to your team, showing up to life, showing up in your relationships, in your marriage, and saying, well, I have to go here, I have to do this. It's like, and you change one word and change, I get to do it, man. And the amount of people that come back to me after they listen to like me speak or something like that, I would say there are a couple of things, but that is one of the things that resonates with people more than anything else, is when I share that whole get to versus have to. This
Yeah.
idea of, like, I have to go to work, I have to clean my room, I have to do this. But when you just change the word to I get to, it changes the way you process that situation. It changes the way you show up to the situation. So anyway, so there's a long list of, words that again, that I've tried to sort of use as habitual words that just I can always go to, that help me, stimulate changes. So if I'm in this downward spiral, I feel it emotionally, like energetically, I feel myself, and I be like, okay, you know what? I don't have to do this. I get to do this. You know what I'm saying? And that one word can change everything. But what I was going to say, Victor, I think, in an effort for time, is what I come back to, which I know you're a big fan of this, is the way you start your day. And that is, and I'm sure you've had lots of people that come on the podcast and have shared this, but I know that at certain points in the day, certain experiences that I have are going to be determined by what I did first thing in the morning. If I just roll out of bed, and I'm like, and I'm tired and this and that, whatever, and then I try and hit the ground running, and we, at Pepperdine, we practice at 7 a.m. So it's like, there's not a lot of time. I wake up at 5, but if you could still create a time for prayer and for connection with God, to share your struggles with him, to share your dreams, to just lay it all out for him, or to live in gratitude, to write in your journal, like whatever it's going to be. Like that, to me, I don't know a better way than how you start your morning. I just seen it over and over again. The days when I don't have time, quote unquote, I don't have the time, right? You've talked about excuses. I don't have the time. The days when I, quote unquote, don't have the time, the rest of my day isn't as productive. It isn't as joyful. It isn't it isn't the way I want it to be, as much as if I just take a few minutes out of my day. Because just saying those words, like you're talking about, putting yourself in a mindset and in a framework of gratitude and joy and abundance and love and all those things that you believe in, that is so powerful. It's so powerful. And again, I know I am not saying anything that you or your listeners have not already heard, but I just want to kind of reinforce. If anybody said that to you, if you've listened to Victoria's podcast and you've heard somebody else say that before, I am doubling down and saying how you start your day is everything, because your heart posture throughout the rest of the day changes, and you find those words that you need, you find those emotions that you need, and it's easier to do things, I get to do things versus have to do things when I wrote down what I'm grateful for in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Oh my goodness. These are wonderful reminders. And I even call it my get to do list, not my have to do list. And I'll give you one more and I cannot for the life of me remember who said it, but I'm sorry. That's Rico. He has to make the podcast. I've had him on my lap, which is where he remains most quiet, but they just jumped down. But I heard it from Pat Flynn, who's an entrepreneur, and he's got Spy Media. He's just, I follow him, and he quoted this person. And the question that he said changed his life, talking about Pat Flynn, was this question: what if this were easy? It was that single question to ask of everything. Matter of fact, I have it on I typed that out and printed it. And so during my day, and sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And then I just like, wait a minute, what if my life were really easy? What if I'm just telling myself or convincing myself or positioning myself as if my life were really, really hard with all the things I juggle? But what if this were really easy? And that little shift in what if this were easy it lets the steam off, and suddenly it becomes more enjoyable. It's like, oh, yeah, I think I've got a busy schedule and I have to be across 3 counties all at once, in this little time frame. But what if this were really easy and I just get in my car and I do it? And anyway, that was another one-liner that really changed my life. That I'm with you on the what I get to do, what I have to do. And then second to that was what if this were easy? What if coaching were easy? What if doing a podcast were easy? What if climbing up that mountain were easy? And not that it doesn't come with hardships and trials and challenges, but we can so much talk ourselves into, through our self-talk and through our thoughts and what we're focusing on and what we're growing into really an icky state of being. But the good news is we can flip that. If we can talk ourselves into it, we can talk ourselves out of it and shift ourselves into a direction that is full of health and life and hope and joy, dependent ever on God and with Him. So it's,
Amen. The other, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. And, going back to the golf shot. Okay. So I'll say this, if I have time.
Yes, you do.
Is that golf shot analogy, right? And how the 1 millimeter difference, and you create those 2 different outcomes. Another one that so this is something I deal with a lot. So you said about, what if this were easy? What immediately stimulated my mind was something that I have to work through with a lot of high performance, not just athletes, but just people that try and do life at high level is it the end or is it the beginning? When something happens in your life, like a level of adversity that is really difficult to overcome, asking that question, like, is it the end or is it the beginning? It changes what you look for, right? That's the 1 millimeter shift, right? And because if something, and I'll give you an example. So in women's soccer, okay, ACLs, right? Tearing your ACL, it's pretty common, right? I would say it's not super common, but it's you see it, right? And that's a 9-10 month, 1 year recovery, right? And I know that sounds crazy to kind of use that example right now, but, you know, I've had to work with players through that, right? And what do they initially see when they get told by the doctor, you know, your knee, you have to have ACL surgery. It's going to be a year before you can play again. It's the end. It's the end. That's it. It's over. It's the end, right? And so every thought, when it's the end, leads you down one path, right? That 1 millimeter shift, right? It leads you down, and you end up in this path where it's the end. And if we can channel that thinking, that thought that, like say that thought that you're talking about, and we just make that 1 millimeter shift and say, okay, as tough as it is right now, what if it was setting you up for something greater? What if it was the beginning of something? And the example that comes to mind, I had this beautiful soul that was on our team. She just graduated. She was a 50th senior. She just graduated. Man, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. She was amazing. She was beautiful inside and out. She had such a pure heart. She had love for Jesus, just was amazing. And she tore her ACL. And it was the end for her, because, you know, she had to miss the season because of when she tore it, because of the year recovery. It means she would miss part of the other season. So she almost missed like 2 years of her career.
Wow.
And as you can imagine, a piece of adversity at 19 years old, at 20, like, how do you deal with that? How do you process it emotionally, right? And she was in a really, really tough state. And so, you know, it wasn't like it was like immediate, but through this process of working with her to say, okay, like, what if this was, and it's hard in that moment, and you tell somebody, 19, 20-year-old, you're not going to play soccer for 2 years, but, you know, what's the blessing in that, right? It takes some work, right. But this is where I'm going. Just that simple question of like, is it the end or is it the beginning? She came to me, she knocked on my door one time. She came to my office after post recovery. She got back playing and stuff like that. And she was a goal scorer. So she's scoring goals and she's having fun. And she came by my office. You know, it wasn't like a planned meeting. She knocked on the door. She said, "Coach, can I come in for a minute?" I said, "Sure." She sat down. She said, "Coach, you know, you told me about, you know, is it the end or is it the beginning? I just want to let you know that right now, what I learned through this whole process is my identity was wrapped up in soccer. And it took me tearing my ACL to release myself and take myself out of that sort of my whole life. I'm a soccer player and that's it. And what it allowed her to do is to recreate her identity in herself, her identity in the powerful woman that she is, connecting with God and in a much more meaningful, deeper way. Because you got to go on faith. You know what I'm saying? You got to have belief that, you know, there's a higher purpose at play here. And she said, if that injury had not happened, she's like, I would not be the woman I am today. And from then, you saw her play in a different way. She was still kicking ball on the field, but you know what? She was enjoying it. She was more purposeful. Like the way she played, people would look at her and go like, who is this person? Like, she's a complete different woman. And it took that injury to pause in her career to really find herself. And that's what I'm talking about. It wasn't the end, but it was the beginning. And she didn't know it on the front end because she's like, this is the end. And that 1 millimeter shift, it created 2 completely different outcomes. And I was so proud of her. You know, she come by, we cried a little bit and, you know, we had a moment and we hugged it out and, you know, and now she's gone, she's graduated. But, you know, there's those moments like that when you're coaching, you know, Victoria, it's like, you get those moments and you're like, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
That is it. You know, when they knock on your door and they share that, that's it. That's it. And
you changed her life really, and you impacted her, just that one thought. And I've got that one written down. Oh my goodness, that's going to be added to my list now. Is this the end or is it the beginning? And unfortunately, I'm thinking, is this the end of the podcast? Of the episode? No, it's the beginning of who knows who's going to listen to this and how it might change their lives as well. But anyway, thank you so much, Max, for coming on. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, because just this little half an hour or so that we've chatted, I think the listeners can so quickly see that you are the real deal and you have something of value to contribute to a world in need, and what you've learned and what you can share, I think they should just be flocking to your door and saying, yeah, I want to sign up here. How can I get life to the max? So tell us how.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. You're amazing. So yeah, I would say, so I have my website, Max Rooke, so www.maxrooke, MAXROOKE.com. So www.maxrooke.com. And then on there, that will technically lead you to all of the things. So I have a space where you can sign up, much like you do. I put a lot of free content. I have, weekly emails. I do videos, all free. So you can really tap into that. This thing called Max Moments that I send out weekly. So you can tap into that. There's a free challenge on there, a free 5-day challenge that you can go on, and you can take that, which talks about taking that first step, right? We talked about sort of this idea between living a good life and a great life. And so there's a free challenge that talks about the first step to greatness. There's other coaching programs that I'm about to actually do in the next few weeks. I'm about to do a group coaching program, an 8-week program about the journey from good to great, where we take all those paradoxical shifts that, we talked about a couple of those today, and we work through those as a small group, small community, which is awesome. So I'm doing that. So yeah, all that information is on there. So I would say, yeah, that's an easy way to tap in. And then obviously I'm over social media. So a lot of the handles, if you just, Google my name, Max Rooke, I'm sure you can find like my different handles on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So, no, but yeah, that would be the easiest way. I think it's just most stuff is on the website. So
yes, and if you happen to be viewing on YouTube and you like how Max tells stories, like what you opened with and the stories that you shared, you do that on your YouTube channel. What is the name of your YouTube channel?
Good question.
Do you remember? Is it your name or Life to the Max?
It's just my name. Everything's my name. I think it's Max Rooke. So everything's
okay.
My name.
So it would be so easy if you're watching right now on YouTube to bump over, and we'll have his link in the description on the video you're watching now, but bump over and make sure you subscribe to his channel. And it's like a shot in the arm for inspiration and encouragement. So you don't want to miss that. But thank you so much. What a blessing. This has been awesome. Awesome.
No, thank you
so much.